Hi, this is Diane.
And this is Denise.
With the History Goes Bump podcast, and we are outside of the Willowbrook Ballroom. I'll go ahead and get out here and show you a little bit about the building. This location is host to one of the legends about Resurrection Mary. So this has been here for quite some time. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ballroom. From its simple dance hall days to its rise as one of America's swingingest meccas, the legendary Willowbrook Ballroom has touched the lives of millions for decades, from the high-energy sounds of Count Basie and the oscillating rhythms of Benny Goodman to the infectious dance tempos of modern-day swing groups like Brian Seltzer's orchestra and the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Willowbrook has been home to many a famous band.
Whether dancing the night away on the ballroom's sweeping dance floor or toasting life celebrations in its series of private banquet rooms, yet another generation has become smitten with the romance and history of the Willowbrook Ballroom.
Founded in 1921 by John Verderbar as an outdoor dance hall known as O. Henry Park, the establishment came to grow and flourish through the 1920s, until 1930 when disaster struck and the complex burned to ground-level ruins.
Out of the ashes rose the O. Henry Ballroom, built at the then staggering cost of $100,000. The 1930s and 40s found hundreds of thousands in the mood to swing, as the ballroom became home to the biggest and best bands of the day, complete with its own restaurant, soda fountain, and flower shop.
By the 1950s, a series of additional lounges and restaurants were added, including the elegant 200-seat Willowbrook Room. Soon, confusion would mount between the O. Henry Ballroom and its popular Willowbrook Room. Eventually, the entire complex simply became known as the Willowbrook.
The 77-year legacy of the Verderbar family's ownership of the historic Willowbrook Ballroom has now been transferred to yet another family, the Judd Wallace family, who will continue to carry on the ballroom traditions that have remained in place for decades.
So as I said, this location has a legend about Resurrection Mary. Apparently, this is where she spent her last breathing moments. What had happened is she'd come to the O. Henry Ballroom, as it was called at the time, and she apparently got into an argument with her boyfriend. She decided she wasn't going to go home with him, so she was going to hitchhike home. So she went outside over here to the road out here, which is Archer Avenue that she is said to haunt. And somewhere between this ballroom and the main gate of Resurrection Cemetery, which was about a half a mile, well, actually here it says nearly 2 miles away. Did we travel 2 miles to get here?
I think we did.
Okay, so it's 2 miles away. I thought it was less.
That's because she's not driving.
I'm not driving, so. She was struck and killed by a hit and run. And since it was a hit and run, she was left to die on the side of the road. Within a few years, people began to see a girl in a long white dress and blonde hair thumbing for rides along Archer Avenue.
The more mysterious encounter happened to a cab driver that apparently came in contact with her ghost near the intersection of Archer Avenue and Willow Springs Road, not far from the old Willow Shopping Center and the Willowbrook Ballroom. This interview is reprinted from an interview conducted by Bill Geist of the Suburban Tribune, January 31st, 1979.
It was Thursday night, would have been 2 weeks ago, and I was lost, basically, says Ralph the cab driver. I dropped this big spender way the hell down in Palace Heights or Hills or someplace like that and was trying to make my way back to the tollway. I just turned on to Archer down there where it's still a lonely road, especially at midnight. And there she was. She was standing there with no coat on by the entrance to this little shopping center. No coat. And it was one of those real cold ones, too. She didn't put out her thumb or nothing like that. She just looked at my cab. Of course, I stopped. I figured maybe she had car trouble or something. She hopped right into the front seat. She had on this fancy kind of white dress, like she'd just been to a wedding or something, and those new kinds of disco-type shoes with the straps and that. She was a looker, a blonde. I didn't have ideas or anything like that. She was young enough to be my daughter, 21 tops. I asked her where she was going, and she said she had to get home. I asked her what was wrong, if she'd had car trouble or what she or what, but she really didn't answer me. She was fuzzy. Maybe she'd had a couple of drinks or something, or was just tired. I don't know. Oh, the other thing she said, the snow came early this year. Or the snow came earlier. Wait a minute. What does it say? She either said the snow came early this year or the snows came early this year or something like that. Other than that, she just nodded when I asked sometimes if we were supposed to just keep going up Archer. She just looked out the window at the snow and the trees and that. Her mind was a million miles away. Maybe she smoked something or, you know, something. A couple of miles up Archer there, she jumped with a start like a horse and said, "Here, here." I hit the brakes. I looked around and didn't see any kind of house. "Where?" I said, and then she sticks out her arm and points across the road to my left and says, "There," and that's when it happened. I looked to my left like this at this little shack, and then I turned and she was gone, vanished, and the door never opened. May the good Lord strike me dead. It never opened. He refused to give his name, or his last name at least, address or phone number, fearing that his name would be used in a newspaper article and he would appear to be a raving lunatic. The ballroom was closed Friday, January 12th, and for about